Every now and then I'll set up a theme in the mystery journal that I wish was in my own journal, and this is definitely one of those. This July theme is full of magic and whimsy and fairies. Hi, I'm Erin. Grab your journal and plan along with me if you like. This is the very first monthly theme in a brand new mystery journal. The journal I'm working in here is from Tiefossi. It's their Moonlight Melody journal in the blue version. And the inspiration for my cover spread very much came from this tape. It is this beautiful Art Nouveau style leafy frame pattern. I'm pretty sure I got this from JOURNALSAY some months ago, and it has done a runner on me and I can't find it anywhere online to link you. Reverse image search has been no help. I'm so sorry about that because I think this tape is spectacular and I wish I could send you somewhere where you can buy it. So if you do come across it, please let me know so I can send other people to it. I'm going to layer a bit of torn paper at the top and bottom of each of these pages. This gorgeous light green text print is from paper Monogatari. It's the perfect mix of something with a little bit of texture but nothing too visually overwhelming. It doesn't draw your eye too much. Works as a really nice backdrop for something like this. Adding decoration at the very top and very bottom of a page like this is something that I do pretty often if I know I want to have a fairly horizontally oriented functional space. This is a cover spread, so it doesn't really have functional space, but the same kind of idea applies. I've taken to calling this my train track decoration method. So what's this whole mystery journal thing all about that I've been talking about so far? If you haven't stumbled across this series on my channel before, this is a journal that I set up in advance for 6 months worth of the year and then give away to a subscriber, and the giveaway for this one actually just closed this week, which means this journal is officially the property of Jessica, although it's not with her just yet, but it's going to be before July hits. At the time I'm recording this voiceover, it is fully set up until November, so I still have a little bit of work left to do on the journal, but as soon as that's done, it's going in the mail. I knew the cover spread was going to be my best shot to use some of these frames up, and I really wanted to give them a moment because there won't be too much room for those on the later pages, so I thought to just really let them shine, I would stamp each letter of July in one of the frames kind of behind it in a fairly bold font with black, so it's really going to stand out. That required a little bit of forward planning to make sure everything was spaced out really well, but I'm happy with it now. I'm going to use these letter stamps that I actually got in store at Spotlight here in Australia, but there are lots of similar things available online, so I will make sure I link you to a similar stamp in the description. There will be links to as much of what I'm using as I can possibly link you to in the description too, in case you want to get your hands on anything. Some of those links are affiliate links, just so you know, so if you make a purchase through those links, I will make a small commission. So the mystery journal, why do I do it? A few reasons. I have so much stationery, there's no way that I as one person could ever possibly use it all, even in the multitude of journals that I currently have on rotation in my lineup. It's just too much stationery for one person, so this gives me an outlet to use some more of the stationery up in a way that allows me to give back to a member of my community and say thanks for supporting me, here's something to support you, and I think that's quite nice. It also affords me the opportunity to experiment with things a little bit more, so I can try out layouts that maybe aren't necessarily useful for me in my own journal and think about layouts that are more useful for the typical person watching my videos who maybe doesn't make their money by making YouTube videos about journaling. Like, that's pretty niche, so it gives me an opportunity to think about how someone else might need to approach a journal and try to make it quite universal, which means more inspiration for viewers as well as hopefully something that the winner of the journal can actually use. And it also gives me an opportunity to use some stationery that maybe isn't entirely my vibe sometimes, that I wouldn't necessarily put in my own journal, but might be more someone else's style. So it gives me a chance to play with things that I otherwise might not get the opportunity to. Not this setup though, because this one is extremely Erin coded. I do these mystery journals every 6 months, so obviously this one has just been given away, which means it'll be a little while until the next one. The giveaway for the next one will happen in November, so that I can ship the journal out in December and the winner can use it for January to June 2026. Isn't that a wild number to think about right now? These gold gilded wing stickers are such a beautiful, elegant touch to the page. I'm kind of using them as a layering element every time I want to pop a little fairy down. I'll put these gold wings behind them just to give the page a bit of sparkle. There's a little bit of sparkle in those frame PET shapes as well. This particular journal has a magical through line, so every theme is going to have something that feels or is overtly sometimes a little bit magical, like the fairy stickers. All of the sticker sheets and these little mushroom tapes on the sheet down here as well are all from the Searching for Fae pack from Sticky, which was one of their January themed packs this year. I think it was the vintage pack, don't quote me on that. And I'm going to almost entirely use up all of those sticker sheets in this setup. They're so perfect for this theme. Overall, there's a lot of warm green going on for the colour scheme for this setup, but I will be introducing some other colours, and I love that this tape with the mushrooms on it has some purples, some yellows, some blues, some reds even, so that those can appear throughout the setup without feeling like they're coming out of nowhere. Let's just take a second for the shininess of those frames. Look how pretty that sparkle is. That's actually the cover spread sorted, so we're going to turn the page and move on to the calendar spread. I knew I wanted the lines of the calendar to be quite bold this time, but I also didn't want them to be black. I felt like that might be a bit too overpowering. We had some bold black on the previous page, but for some reason I wasn't feeling it for the calendar this time, so instead I'm using a green Tombow, using the bullet end of the pen so it's a nice consistent but also fairly thick line with my ruler, and that's going to give me a green calendar skeleton. It can get a little messy on the end of your ruler though. I recommend if you're using markers with your ruler like this, that you pause and wipe the ruler off every few lines so that they don't smudge. I've made each of the calendar planning spaces 4 dot grid spaces tall by 4 dot grid spaces wide, and I didn't want to put the number for each day of the month inside the planning space this time, so I've added an extra row above each week and coloured it in green so there's a dedicated space for those numbers to sit. Since we stamped the July header on the cover spread, I thought it would be nice to bring the stamps into the rest of the layouts as well for some consistency, going for something with a bit of a serif font. This one feels maybe a little bit more typewriter than the cover spread, but I'm happy to go with it. And I'm using the same 228 Tombow that I used for the calendar to stamp those letters along the top as well, so everything's feeling very cohesive and kind of colour drenched, although my stamps were a little dirty, so I don't think the colour completely translated. This square of William Morris print came from a calendar that I bought when I was in London back in October last year. If I'm being totally honest, I had no plans to ever use it as a calendar. I really just wanted to harvest the paper inside for journaling purposes, so mission accomplished. And I'm using another of my go-to decoration styles here, somewhat dictated naturally by the shape of the calendar for July. It starts on a Tuesday and ends on a Thursday, which means there's a little gap in the top left corner and a little gap in the bottom right corner, so that's where I'm going to center my decorations. This corner collage style of decoration is really good if you are a bit more of a minimalist, you like to have some negative space on your pages. I like that I still have some room left over where I can fit some more of those frames, and I'm layering those up again with those gold wing stickers so that everything's really feeling harmonious from the first spread into the second. Some of these elements are going to be too big for the subsequent pages, so I'm trying to make use of them where I can before I run out of room. I don't often like to have figures of people in my journal. I will always make exceptions for fairies though. A tip I have for you as a former full-time wedding photographer though, if you are including stickers of people in your journal spreads, is to have them facing in towards the middle of the page rather than facing outwards, so it looks like they're looking off the page, because that's going to naturally send your eye away from the planning spaces, and I think on some level psychologically maybe encourage you not to use them. So I like to always have my figures looking in wherever possible. Sometimes you can't because you've got one sticker left and only one place you can use it, but for the most part, I try to have them looking inwards. I'm also finally using some transfer stickers in a layout again. It's been a while and I forgot how much I like them. These stickers are a really interesting kind if you haven't come across them before, because they're kind of more like a temporary tattoo that you put on your skin. Rather than peeling it off a backing and sticking it with an adhesive side to the page, you actually place the sticker down and then rub over the top of it, and it will transfer from the sticker sheet onto the page, and it almost looks like it was always printed there. It's kind of seamless and I really enjoy how they look. I really went through a frames phase when it comes to stickers that I was really drawn to and interested in, and I've had these gold frames in my collection for some time. I only had 3 left and I'm managing to use 2 of them on this spread, so this is another reason I love the mystery journal. I can finally move things out that I've been holding on to for quite a while that turn out to be perfect for a theme like this. I'm bringing some more William Morris representation onto this spread, which could not be more perfect. I actually got these samples of wide washi tape from my Discord Secret Santa from one of my channel members back at Christmas time, which is so lovely. This person obviously really knows what I like. I wanted to try to fill the background of the frames as much as I could, so the wing stickers have come in really handy there. Obviously we're getting some texture and colour from the William Morris tapes too. The page that we're working on right now is for goal setting, although we're calling it manifesting for this journal because it sounds much more magical. And it's also a place for taking note of anything that you're enjoying in the moment. So favourite TV shows, or foods, or colours, or clothing, anything at all that you're enjoying can go in the enjoying space, which will be in the bottom right corner. So the spaces I've left blank are the functional areas where the winner of the journal will be able to add their own text. And sometimes you want a little bit of colour in those spaces, and sometimes you don't. This time I definitely do, so I'm adding a little second line highlight with my very favourite green Tombow, the 192 asparagus colour, for a bit of extra pizzazz on the page without having to put too much more effort in. Now we just need some titles for those sections, so back to my stamps, and I'm going to colour them in black this time with a Tombow Fudonosuke to really make things tie back in with that first cover spread. This isn't too bold and commanding, so I'm happy to use black here. Something that I think is really important when you're looking for magic in every day is to keep some kind of a gratitude practice, and so that's what this next page is for. That's typically a pretty text-heavy page by the time it's all used up and filled in, so I wanted to decorate this one fairly minimally, which means I'm going to tear this wide washi tape right down the middle so it doesn't take up as much space but also gives me some of that torn texture that we had back on the cover spread. I really like a torn edge, I think it looks very romantic, and this is still going to leave me plenty of room for 31 days worth of daily gratitude logging. And to tie it in with the facing page, I'm adding my second line highlight in the same colour. Anytime I set up any kind of daily tracker like this, besides just having the number for each day of the month, I also like to add the initial for each day of the week right beside it, because I always find it easier to remember if I'm filling this out a few days later, what happened to me on Tuesday versus what happened to me on the 8th. Now we just need a title for this page and a little bit of extra decoration, and the page will be complete. If you like your headings to be really centered and you're using stamps like this, then you can always start with the middle letter of the word and work your way out. I typically find when I try to do that, I end up misspelling the word, so I have learned to just roll forward, but it does work if you have your wits about you. I have been pretty vocal about the fact that I don't love butterflies on stationery just because they are so pervasive. They're on almost everything, it seems, but this particular sheet of transfer stickers also has a dragonfly sticker, and that is so gorgeous. I feel like that's much more original. I would love to see dragonflies on more stationery in 2026. Can we make that a trend? Let's make that a trend. Onward to our next spread. This one is also for tracking. This one is actually for habits and mood. I find that these things kind of go hand in hand, so I usually like to have them bundled together. That makes the most sense to me, but if you prefer a different page order, you could absolutely set these up differently in your own journal. So we're starting with the habit tracker here. This time I'm going with a grid, kind of a table habit tracker. In my own life, I find 6 habits is about the sweet spot for me, where I can introduce new habits each month if I need to. I can continue working on a couple of older ones that I still need a bit of work on, but 6 seems to be a good spot for me. So that's how many habits I like to allow space for in the mystery journal too. I really liked how the green lined calendar looked back on the calendar spread, so I'm bringing that into the habit tracker page as well. And once again, there will be not just the numbers for each day of the month, but also the initial for the day. When I set up my habit trackers like this, I like to allow 2 dot grid spaces wide for each of the days, because that way you can track something that is maybe done in the morning and in the evening if there's a medication or something that you need to be tracking, or you want to make sure that you are moving your body a little bit every day, then that just gives you a bit more flexibility. And if you don't want to use the habit tracker like that, you can just make the marking that indicates you have completed or not completed the habit right in the middle, kind of in line with the dots rather than in between them. I've deliberately placed the habit tracker a little bit to the right of the first page here so that I've got some space on the left to add decoration. This is similar to the decoration we did back on the cover spread where it was just the top and bottom, although this time it's going to be vertically oriented, so it will be the left side of the left page and the right side of the right page. Still train tracks, but instead of train tracks running east to west this time, they're running north to south. Something that happens in my journal quite often that I usually cut out of videos, but this one took me so long to correct, I thought I'd just include it and talk about it. I quite often get cat hair stuck under stickers, and so it took me a minute to get that one out, and I tore a little hole in my transfer sticker that I had to cover up with a tiny butterfly. The right page is for the mood tracker, and I thought since we had such a fairy tale theme going on here, I would really lean into that and make an illustrative style mood tracker with some castles and some crowns and some swords, but I didn't want to spend hours drawing them all myself, so I am turning to my phenomenal stamp sets from the Quirky Cup Collective. The ones that you're seeing on the screen right now are all from the book genres set, but I also have the fantasy and fiction set, the practical magic set, and the sugar and spice set too. So I've got plenty to be getting on with here to fill up the page. The goal here is to have 31 little illustrations stamped on the page that the winner of the journal can colour in each day in a colour that corresponds with their mood. I'm using a very particular ink pad for this. This is the VersaFine Onyx, I think it's an oil-based ink, and it's fantastic when you plan to colour over things down the track because it will not smear no matter what you colour over it with. If you're doing a similar mood tracker in a journal, I recommend that you look for stamps that are slightly different sizes because it can be a little tricky to fit 31 of them on a page and have it look balanced and deliberate. I actually started out with a bit of a grid pattern, but as I move down the page, I'm going to just make sure that I have space for the larger stamps and get those on the page first and then stamp the smaller ones around them. It's also helpful to keep in mind that you're going to need to add a key to the page somewhere so that there is a reference for which mood is represented by which colour. If you're worried you won't have enough space for a key, maybe add that first before you do all of your stamping. I also spent quite a bit of this time just counting and recounting the stamps to make sure I had as many as I thought I did, because I didn't want to end up with too few, and I also didn't want to end up with too many. This is one of those pages that beautifully walks the balance of being decorative while also being functional, so we're not going to really add anything to the page outside of the functional stamps because any decoration is just going to overwhelm this, especially once it's all coloured in with moods. So those mushrooms lining the top and bottom of the page in train tracks there are as much decoration as this one's going to get. Now that I've got all of the tracking stamps on the page, I'm just going back through with this little star shape and filling in any gaps with that. And that can be something that the winner of the journal colours in any colour that they like, just as a fun little project, maybe while they're listening to an audiobook or something. I'm adding my key right at the top. We've got 2 of the faces on one side, 2 on the other to represent the moods. The winner of the journal can assign whatever markers they like to those faces so that they make sense to the winner. They can also add some more faces to give it some more nuance if they like. And of course we need to go back through with a tiny fine liner and assign a number to each of these so that they all correspond to a specific day of the month. I'm not including an initial for each day here because I just think that would take up a little bit more space and I want the numbers to be as not noticeable as possible. Stamping can get a little bit messy, and if you get any of the ink on the corners of the stamp, sometimes they'll leave a mark, so I'm jumping back in with my trusty white paint marker to tidy things up a little bit. I'm going to also add a second line highlight to the habit tracker so that that page looks as busy as the one facing it, and then this spread will be complete. Our next spread is one that has been in a mystery journal before, but not for quite some time. This is something I'm feeling like I need to bring back into my life, so that's probably why it's on my mind. This spread is going to be a meal planner and shopping list. This is something I really struggle with. I have trouble thinking about food if I'm not hungry, so planning out my meals in advance and planning what I'm going to buy when I grocery shop is not something that is ever super high on my radar, but when I do it, I eat so much better, I feel so much better, and I spend less money, so I think it's probably something I need to bring back. And it's definitely going to be something that might be helpful to a lot of people, so including it in the mystery journal feels like a good idea. I looked at a lot of inspiration for meal planners before I set this page up, but the best thing I can come up with, in my opinion, is actually a calendar. So if you have days where you know you'll be going to an event and you don't need to plan for dinner, it can go in the calendar. If you do a weekly takeaway on a Friday as a little treat, that can go in the calendar. And if you're meal prepping and keeping in the fridge or the freezer any meals that you're just going to heat up, you can mark on the calendar when that will no longer be good to eat, so you know what kind of time frame you have to work with there. I've oriented this calendar vertically rather than horizontally like I normally would, because I wanted to make sure that there was an opportunity for you to say maybe every Monday you have the same thing at work for lunch. And it was a little bit more logical, I thought, to have it move horizontally in that case for all of the Mondays rather than vertically. I also deliberately made each of the calendar spaces 4 dot grid spaces tall in order to allow space for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and a snack on each one of those days for planning, if you wanted to. When I drew out the grid, however, I forgot to account for the fact that July starts on a Tuesday and ends on a Thursday, so I have lots of leftover empty boxes, but that's okay. I'm going to work with that and put some pretty things in those spaces. I did accidentally only number the boxes up to 30, and I didn't realize that until recording this voiceover and watching the video back, so it's okay. I still have the journal with me. I will cover that square up with some white sticker paper so that it is still functional. Oops. I have very deliberately oriented the whole meal planner calendar to the left side of the spread, so there'd be room left over on the right here for a shopping list, because of course if you're going to be prepping all of this food, you need to know what you need to buy when you get your groceries, whether that's in-store or if you get your groceries online. It helps to have a list, because then you aren't tempted by the extra stuff that's on special. There's not a lot of negative space left over on this spread, but I am going to add some decoration wherever I can. Here's a little decoration tip I love that we haven't done too much of elsewhere in the setup. I love to have things overlap a little bit with my functional space in a way that's not going to interfere with the function of that functional space. So on the left side there, I have a fairy sticker that's just popping out in between the T for Tuesday and the W for Wednesday, but I love that that kind of ties everything together and makes them feel like they're all part of the same spread. Our meal planning calendar and our shopping list are complete, so let's turn the page and we'll move on to the last of the planned functional spreads for this setup. This one is going to have a spending log on the left side and something a little bit more loose and open on the right. I'm so sorry I lost a bit of footage there for you, but I think I've set up this spending log on my channel 100,000 times at this point and nothing has changed. So it is just a table. This is a place for tracking your finances, making sure you're not spending too much money. Writing down what you are spending can discourage you from spending money when maybe you didn't really want to and you're saving for something and you want to try to keep your eye on the prize. This is actually one big table, but I've layered itself next to itself, so it has the same 3 columns twice. Those columns are item for the thing that you purchased, a short description, category for how you categorize that type of expense. The category field actually relates back to an overall spending log that's at the beginning of the journal, so that's an important one. It ties back to the previous setup video. And naturally, the cost column is for how much the item that you purchased cost. At the end of the month, you can tally things up by category and see if you overspent in any areas versus your budget, or maybe if you underspent and can move some money to your savings. Since I covered the top area above the table with some washi tape, I'm actually stamping my heading this time on some white sticker paper, and I'm going to cut that out and layer it over the top of the washi. The page on the right I'm going to leave quite a bit more open than the previous pages, and that's because this one is for keeping track of some good memories throughout the month. There are so many different ways you could approach this, and I like to include memory keeping in my own journal, so I like to mix it up a little bit. Sometimes I'll include photos, and sometimes I'll write about the experiences that I've had. Sometimes I'll just use it to stick in the junk that I have accumulated over the course of the month, things like wristbands from events that I go to, tickets or flyers, wrapping paper, tags, receipts, that kind of thing. And because I don't know how the winner of the journal might want to approach this page, I'm leaving lots of blank space for them to do as they would like. So I'm just continuing the decoration from the spending page over onto the right side as well, adding my heading. I almost lettered spending a second time accidentally, and we will leave it at that. Much like the memories page we just set up, this next spread is completely open to interpretation as well, and that's because this is actually just a spare spread. Since I am not actually the person who will be using this journal, I like to bake in a little bit of flexibility by including a spread that is pre-decorated but otherwise left blank, so that if there's anything I haven't considered, that is something that the winner would like to include in the journal, whether that's a tracker or more memory keeping or just playing with some of the extra stationery that I send along with the journal, they have a space to do that without feeling like they have to completely decorate something from scratch. It is my dream that the journals that I make and give away are used by the people who end up with them, but also once the journal has left my hands, it's not mine anymore. And realistically, life happens. I definitely have months where I use my journal less than others, so whether or not this journal gets used is actually none of my business in the end. But just in case, from a place of inspiration for anyone else watching, and just in case the winner does get a lot of use out of it, I like to make sure it's as functional as possible. Those are all of our monthly trackers and overview pages. Let's now move on to the weeklies. In my own journal, the weekly spreads are really where I live my life. It's the spread that's always open on my desk at any given time. It's where I write my to-do lists and my reminders and my events. I used to try to make all of my weeklies the same layout throughout an entire month for consistency and ease of use and less decision making, but I've discovered over time that I really enjoy varying my weeklies from one to the next. That variety keeps me interested in the journal, which is the whole point of bullet journaling for me, the fact that I can change things up as I like. And so I like to bring that variety into the mystery journal as well, because I like to think that maybe it will help you find a layout that is the right one for you, or that is the right one for you right now. And maybe for the winner, it will be a little tasting platter, a little smorgasbord of weekly spreads, so they can work out what works best for them too. It's also always so much fun to find different ways to use the stickers and the papers and the tapes that I've used elsewhere through the setup. And sometimes as I'm moving through the weekly spreads, I'm starting to run out of things too, which is a little bit of a challenge. And I am someone who loves a challenge, so honestly, sometimes the weeklies are the best part of the mystery journal setup for me. In my own journal, I don't do them back to back like this. I will set up the weeklies in a couple of sessions over the course of the month, and I'll try to do those on a live stream, although I haven't made that happen in recent months while I've been a bit unwell. You can see here I'm actually introducing a new element that I haven't used elsewhere through the setup, although the color scheme is so accurately matching that you can't really tell that I'm adding something new, and that's these solid thin washi tapes. I didn't want to go really hard on the decoration for this spread. I wanted it to feel a little bit more breathable and airy, so I've gone with a really thin pale washi tape rather than the heavier kind of William Morris tapes. I'm also running low on those and trying to conserve them for some future pages. So the washi tape and also some green leafy stickers that I haven't used elsewhere are going to come to my rescue for this spread. Usually I like to keep my weeks together regardless of which month they fall into, so typically in this situation the Monday would still be on this spread even though it technically is the last day of June. But since this is a brand new journal and it is starting from July, I thought we'll start from the 1st instead. So the way I've set this weekly up doesn't have a Monday. It has one day less than maybe I would usually have on a weekly, but the rest of them throughout the rest of this journal up until the end of December will be the way I normally do it. That's weekly 1 of 5 complete for July, so let's move on to weekly 2. This one is a little bit more suspended, and you can see I had to pause and clean my ruler for a second there because I was getting some splatter going on. I say suspended because the boxes are kind of floating in space this time, where they were a little bit more connected on the last one. You could say that the decoration for the previous weekly was also my train tracks idea with the top and bottom, although they were a little bit more disjointed, not the full stretch of the top and bottom. This spread, we're going train tracks, and we're going to put a little track right through the middle of the spread horizontally as well. Sometimes through the rest of the setup, I will do the decoration first and the functional parts second, but when it comes to the weeklies, I think the reverse is the system that makes the most sense. So usually I'll get all the functional stuff down on the page first and then add my decoration. I've also learned I really need to have my brain switched on when I'm stamping the days of the week like this, because I can very easily zone out. I'm usually listening to an audiobook while I set up my journals and stamp the wrong numbers entirely, which is not what we want, especially when the journal is not for me. So I tried to make sure I had everything right, and I think it worked out okay this time. I was definitely experiencing some sticker indecision. I had lots of different options for the wings, but was having trouble finding the right sized ones to take up the right amount of space without eating into my planning space at all, but I think we made it work. There are some stickers and tapes that really work best in a horizontal orientation, some that work better in a vertical orientation, and sometimes you can find some really versatile ones that can work whatever you do with them. But I was trying to really find things that worked for the horizontal for this one, and lots of them seem to be more vertically oriented, so it was a little bit tricky. A testament to the versatility of these awesome little transfer stickers, I am layering this one over the top of washi tape and a little bit over the top of the sticker beside it too, and it worked like a dream. So at first I thought you could only stick these onto the paper without anything else in the way. Turns out they're a bit more versatile than I thought. I'm happy with how this is looking, so let's charge ahead into Mystery Journal Weekly Spread for July Round 3. Since the last two both involved drawing boxes for each one of the days, I thought this time we'd leave things a little bit more loose and use the good old second line highlight to denote the space where the planning will happen instead. I've also decided to stagger the heights of each of these, so Monday will be higher, Tuesday will be lower, so on and so forth, and I'm using a different coloured marker as well. It might just seem like a visual consideration, but having extra space at the top and bottom is also going to give me a bit more wiggle room when it comes to using some of my smaller ephemera. I've noticed in recent times I've been stamping my days of the week in what I'm attempting to make the most efficient pattern possible. I always have to do notes somewhat first so I don't forget and go to stamp a Monday there instead, but the rest of them I try to do all of the E's at the same time, all of the U's at the same time. Sometimes it works and sometimes I get so lost. I've used up most of my actual fairy stickers so far. I still have some left that are on postage stamps and that kind of thing, but they were a bit big for these spaces, so instead of those I'm going to rely really heavily on my transfer stickers here. And I'm using those to fill the pockets in between the weeklies that the staggering effect has left. I've been holding on to these purple fairies, just waiting for the right moment. This spread at the moment really only has green and yellow on it, so this was a really good way to introduce some different colours, really keep us on theme with the magic and the fairy tales, but also introduce a colour that's quite contrasting with some of the other stuff that's going on. I really like the way this came out in the end actually. The tiny pop of purple is making me so happy. It's kind of giving Fern Gully. It did feel a little disjointed though. I wanted a touch more purple on the page, and I still had some of these mushroom tapes left over, so this is a really good time to use them. Let's move on to weekly spread 4 for this layout. The setup for this one is actually quite similar to weekly spread 2, but I thought it would be interesting to show you how decorating something differently can give it an entirely different vibe. So we're still doing boxes. We're still going to have a row of boxes at the top of the spread and a row of boxes at the bottom of the spread. I'm going to exclude the notes box this time and just really dedicate that bottom right corner to decoration. And instead of having the title for the days that are on the bottom row at the top of their planning space, I'm moving it to the bottom because I want to add all of my decoration through the center of the spread horizontally. We're also not drawing boxes around this one. We're going to stick to the second line highlight system. So even though these are technically still boxes that are defined by where the lines are drawn on the page, they don't feel as boxed in. They feel much more open and free. Remember when I was saying earlier that my brain sometimes goes on autopilot and I stamp things that aren't correct? I did that in this bottom right corner here again because I did not intend to add a note section, remember? But I've gone ahead and added lines there because I penciled out the box when I wasn't sure if I wanted to include it or not. And then I went on autopilot as described, and now we have lines there. So I need to work out what to do about that. I caught myself about halfway through, so let's add washi tape through the center while I have a think about it. And what I've landed on is I'm going to finish the lines, but then still just add my decorations right on top. So the lines become a decorative element here rather than part of the functional planning space. This big PET sticker is from Paper Monogatari. I wasn't sure if these would fit anywhere in this setup, but this little happy accident has made it the perfect spot for it to sit over here. Now I'm just going to use tiny elements that are left over from my sticker sheets to add a little decoration in slightly random spots around the boxes of weekly planning space. I also couldn't resist the opportunity to get one more of these PET frames down on the page. There aren't many opportunities because they are kind of large, so I thought it would be nice for it to frame in this decorative section down in the bottom right. I had the opportunity and I took it. It is a lot. It was already pretty good looking how it was. I wouldn't use the yellow one, that was way too much, but I decided to just roll with it because this page really needed some shiny. It didn't have too much shiny going on. I managed to stick it down with a big bubble in it, which wasn't ideal, but because the sticker underneath it is also a PET sticker, it wasn't too hard to peel back up and just work that bubble out. This one ended up being probably the quickest to set up so far, which is a bit of a surprise because it looks like it has lots going on, but actually, it was pretty simple. And for our last weekly spread for this setup and this theme, I'm going with a horizontal theme instead, which is completely different to all of the other weeklies. This one involves dividing the page into 4 sections vertically. Most A5 size dot grid notebooks like this will have 38 dot grid spaces from top to bottom, which doesn't divide so well by 4, but you can work it out if you just leave like a couple of spaces at the top and bottom. I've gone back to my big letter and number stamps that we used back on the July cover page to really bring that home. We're kind of bookending the setup with those big letter stamps. I dropped one though, you can see on the right page there, which is really unfortunate. I've alternated which side of the page I've added those letters and numbers on for some visual interest. And the challenge-loving side of me gets to now work out where to decorate this page because I am just going to try and use as many of my leftover stickers as I possibly can. If you like the idea of having a notes section, you could absolutely add a notes section at the bottom of the right page here opposite the Thursday, but I wanted to really use up some more stuff, so I decided to leave that for decoration instead. It can be so tricky to take all of these last little bits of sticker sheets and try to put them together into something that looks cohesive and deliberate, but I do love a challenge, as I mentioned, so I'm going to do my best with what I've got here, and anything that's still left over, I'm going to bundle into sticker books and into a box and send it along with the journal so that the winner can use those items if they do need to set up any extra spreads that I haven't included, or if they just want to play with them and have a bit of fun. Obviously, I won't be sending any of my more permanent collection items like my pens along with the journal because I need those, but as far as stickers and tapes, I will send a nice little selection of everything so that there are some things to be working with. If you're interested in seeing any little sneak previews of the future months in the Mystery Journal, because of course I am currently working on all of them up until December, I will have some of those in my vlog series, so there are a few already actually on the channel in my previous vlog from a few weeks ago, but the next one in the series, I post one every month, will include little sneaky previews of all of the Mystery Journal themes in case you like spoilers. Never underestimate the power of a tiny sticker to help fill in a gap and join together 2 items. The Mystery Journal setup for July 2025 is now complete. Let's have a little flip through from start to finish. I feel like the magic is really strong in this one. I'm so happy and excited with the way this theme turned out, and I personally would love to live in this theme for a month if this was in my own journal, so I hope that the winner has a similar experience. If you've made it all the way to the end of this video, I'd love for you to jump into the comments and let me know what your favourite fairy tale is. I'm actually not sure if I have one. I was a ballet girly growing up though, so maybe Swan Lake, does that count? Actually, I think if ballets count, it's probably the Nutcracker, to be honest. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope you got some ideas for your own journal setup for July, and if you did and you recreate any of these spreads, I would absolutely love to see. If you're a member of the channel and you're in the Discord server, you can post them in the Show and Tell channel. Otherwise, you can send them to me on Instagram. I'm at erinsmith.art over there. If you're keen to keep watching and get some ideas for a new journal setup, here is a link to the initial setup in this journal, as well as a link to a video YouTube thinks you'll enjoy.